There are a lot of people out there that will try to spin the current state of comic books and tell you everything is great. The sales have never been better. Marvel and DC are in a great place. But really, everybody, you and I, Marvel Comics, DC Comics, we're all defined by our actions, not our words, right? And if you see the actions of Marvel and DC, they seem a bit more desperate, digging further and further into their bag of tricks as their gimmick marketing isn't working. And today we got news that there's going to be a Daredevil reboot. It's going back to a #1 issue after Devil's Reign. Apparently something happens very enormous there, and it's time to reboot the character with an all-new creative team. Although they forgot to reboot the character or bring in a new creative team, they're just going to relaunch Daredevil because they needed a #1 issue. And of course, this #1 issue is going to be very important. It's going to be a collector's item. You're going to need a copy because it's a Daredevil #1. We've never seen a Daredevil #1 from Chip Zdarsky and Marco Checchetto before. Now, I'm not complaining about the creative team because I've been singing from the rooftops since this series started that Daredevil has been the best ongoing series at Marvel for quite some time. I do think it's been overtaken by Moon Knight and Strange Academy, probably within the last 4 or 5 months. Before that, maybe even Hellions as well. But it's still been really good. It's one of the solid books at Marvel Comics. Daredevil has been great. I love Daredevil. When I think about my favorite comic book characters, most of the top of the heap are over at DC Comics. But when I think about my favorites in Marvel, it's like Daredevil, Wolverine, maybe Spider-Man? No, it's Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's #1. Then like Daredevil, Wolverine. Those are my favorite Marvel characters. So this is a character I love. I read every Daredevil series, hoping that I enjoy it. And I've enjoyed this one. But just because I'm a Daredevil mark, just because I'm a Chip Zdarsky mark, just because I'm a Marco Checchetto mark, doesn't mean I can't see the forest through the trees. Doesn't mean that I don't understand what I've been taking for a ride here. This isn't a relaunch. There's no reason to reset Daredevil to a #1 issue. It's the exact same creative team on the same exact character. And guess what? According to the release, they're following the exact same storylines that they've been working with for the last 3-4 years. We've got the big plot thread hanging out there that Elektra is trying to recruit Matt to join her to become the king and queen of the something to destroy the Hand for good. And we know Stick's kind of behind the scenes, and it's been a ruse, well, potentially been a ruse when Electric Nachos has been portraying Daredevil for quite some time. And then there's another problem with that we're going to get into. But this is happening in June, and this is going to be following up on the events of Devil's Reign, the ongoing event series from Chip Zdarsky and Marco Checchetto. And they're going to continue telling stories about Matt Murdock and Elektra, though man and woman without fear, but starting in June, it'll be a new series. If you have Matt Murdock back as Daredevil, what's Electric Nachos doing as the woman without fear? Why is she still Daredevil? Why do you need 2 Daredevils in the Marvel Universe? Why do you need 2 Captain Americas? Why do you need 2 Spider-Man? Right? Like, get out of here with this shit. You've only got the one mantle. Let's stop passing it around like a joint and then everyone gets a puff give, right? It devalues the character. I personally am not opposed, or was not opposed, to Elektra taking the mantle of Daredevil while he was in prison as a means of either proving to Matt that she had truly changed or manipulating Matt into agreeing to work with her so that she could murder him, which she's already said she was going to do. Either way, I was like, well, Elektra has the skill set and the knowledge of the city and the history with the title to where taking over the mantle isn't the worst idea of all times. But keeping it after Matt returns, he's out of prison now. Obviously, he's cleaning up the streets and putting Kingpin in his place by the end of Devil's Reign. There's no reason for Electric Nachos to be Daredevil anymore. It's stupid. I don't know why they keep doing this. They keep going to this well time and time again. Even when they get it right, they get it wrong because there's no restraint. That's the word I was looking for. There's no restraint on Marvel Comics' part. They just can't help themselves. Even when something works, they have to ruin it. And we're also told the series will address the future of both Matt and Elektra and the brutal cost of being Daredevil. Haven't we already addressed that? Like, Matt literally murdered somebody being Daredevil. He went to prison. He was inhabited by a symbiote. He had to give himself the electric chair. They tried to murder him 3 times in prison. It feels like a pretty brutal cost of being Daredevil. Maybe he could just fight crime and win for a little bit. I like Chip Zdarsky, but let's do something a little bit different here. We've already talked about the brutal cost. The other thing that they say that's going to happen in this Daredevil series, and I'm going to read it, and I'm probably going to recommend it as well. But my ass is a little chapped on this one. It says Marvel promises new enemies and radical changes to the Daredevil mythos in the darkest Hell's Kitchen to date. Man, I've read Frank Miller's Hell's Kitchen. I've read Frank Miller's Daredevil. It doesn't get darker than that. That was some really, really gritty stuff. Go back and read Born Again if you want to read some really, really dark Hell's Kitchen. And I don't mind a dark take on Matt Murdock and Daredevil. It fits the character. It fits, his mission and where he's at and everything. But stop promising stuff like this. This isn't going to be the darkest Hell's Kitchen to date. There was a time when Karen Page was sucking cock for crack and giving away Matt Murdock's secret identity. That's some pretty dark stuff. I don't think Chip Zdarsky is going to go darker than that. I don't think he's got it in him to go darker than Frank Miller. So this is a glass is half empty, glass is half full. It's half empty because it's Marvel Comics and they're rebooting a series for no reason other than so they can get a number one and get a boost in sales. Of course, it's also a jumping off point for some people that have been like, you know what? I really like Daredevil, but it's not quite as good as it was 2 years ago. Why continue on? They're relaunching it anyway. I don't want to pay the $6 or $7 they're going to charge me for the first issue anyway, because Daredevil has not been as good as when it first started. And they're promising the world. They're promising to take Daredevil in a place he's never been before as far as darkness. Listen, you're not going to be able to do that. Why don't you just promise a really good Daredevil story? And why don't we just let the character win? Now, of course, the glass is half full. It is Chip Zdarsky. It is Marco Checchetto. It's two of the best creators in all of Marvel Comics. You're not going to find a better writer, artist team at Marvel right now. Unfortunately, they've been working on this character for over 3 years. I like long runs. It's one of the things that we've talked about that the comic industry needs. I think it's cool that these guys are going into their 4th year together on the character, but you're literally undoing the goodwill that a long run gives you by rebooting it unnecessarily. Is this going to be good? Almost guaranteed to be a very high quality comic book, but they're marveling it. They marvel everything. So that's the Daredevil relaunch. We're getting it in June. It's coming after Devil's Reign. I figured it was going to be Daredevils. That would actually make sense. If you're going to call it Daredevils is a new name, then you could relaunch it. But just calling it Daredevil #1, lame. It stinks of Marvel. It stinks of CB Cebulski. It stinks to high heavens of the Legion of Doofuses. And is it David Gabriel in the marketing department? These guys are desperate. Nothing that they're doing is working right now. They're having to relaunch, reboot series when they don't need to be rebooted. They're having to lean more and more on variant cover schemes to sell the same exact comic books to people more than one time that have no intention of ever reading them because people are checking out. People are kind of tired of Marvel. I'm going to be a realist here. A vast majority, like I would say at least 90% of Marvel comics that are being released don't touch the quality of Daredevil. It's actually more of an anomaly than a standard at Marvel Comics right now. Definitely happy that Checchetto and Zdarsky are continuing on Daredevil. I'm not happy that Marvel Comics are once again reaching into their dirty bag of tricks to try and pull a couple more dollars out of my wallet and try to sell the exact same damn comic book to the exact same customer 5 times by claiming this is a collector's issue. It's not. It's the same fucking story. The same characters with the same creators. It's lame. Daredevil isn't the only character that Marvel are going to be rebooting in the near future. They're actually going to be redoing Captain America in April. And guess what? They're going to have 2 Captain Americas, Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers. If you haven't seen my video here, I do have a pretty good full-out rant on that one because, hey, I was even more pissed about that one because they don't even have a good writer on those comic books. It's Marvel, baby.